The gold ring slipped from Eleanor's trembling fingers, landing with a hollow clink on the weathered counter of the trading post. 3 days without food had made her hands shake like aspen leaves in a canyon wind. The ring had belonged to her grandmother, the last precious thing tying her to a life before her father's debts, before the auction where he'd promised her to Jacob Thornwell like livestock. "That'll get you a loaf of bread, maybe some beans," the clerk said, barely glancing at the delicate band. Through the dust-coated window, Eleanor could see the vastness of the Arizona Territory stretching toward mountains that looked like broken teeth against the copper sky. She'd run 300 miles from that Missouri farm, her wedding dress torn to rags somewhere in Kansas. Now she stood in a town called Redemption, with nothing but a gold ring and the clothes on her back. Before we continue with Eleanor's story, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and leave a like on this video. Your support truly matters. It motivates us to bring you more quality stories like this one. Also, I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments. The trading post door swung open with a groan, and the clerk's expression shifted from boredom to something resembling fear. Eleanor turned to see a man filling the doorway, tall enough that he had to duck beneath the frame, shoulders broad as an ox yoke. His skin was sun-darkened leather, his hair black as crow feathers and tied back with a strip of rawhide. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch, dark as midnight, sharp as obsidian, and fixed directly on her. "Put the ring away," he said, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. He spoke with the careful precision of someone who'd learned English as a second language. "Gold isn't what we need here." "Mr. Blackwater," the clerk stammered, "I was just conducting business. You were about to cheat a woman half dead from hunger." Blackwater's gaze never left Eleanor. "I can see her ribs through that dress." Eleanor's face burned with shame, but she lifted her chin. She'd been raised to be meek, taught that a woman's voice was meant to be soft as butter. But 300 miles of running had burned that teaching away like morning fog. "I can negotiate my own business, sir." Something flickered in Blackwater's eyes. Approval, maybe, or surprise. "I'm sure you can, but Mike here has a habit of taking advantage." He moved to the counter with surprising grace for such a large man. "How much food can $30 buy?" "A month's worth, easy," Mike said quickly. Blackwater placed 3 $10 gold pieces on the counter. "Load up a wagon. Flour, beans, salt pork, coffee, sugar, vegetables if you have any that aren't rotting." Then he turned to Eleanor. "You need work?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Eleanor knew what happened to women alone in frontier towns. She'd seen the painted ladies in the saloon windows, their hollow smiles and haunted eyes. What kind of work? The kind that involves cooking, mending, keeping a house. His expression remained unreadable. "I run cattle 20 miles north. Lost my housekeeper last month when she married the blacksmith. Pay is $15 a month, plus room and board." "That's generous." "It's fair. The work is hard." He paused, and something in his face softened almost imperceptibly. "But you'll be safe. No man on my land touches a woman without her permission. That's a promise sealed in blood." Eleanor looked at him, really looked. He wore range clothes like any cowboy, leather vest over a worn shirt, denim pants faded to the color of sky at dusk, boots scarred from hard use. But there was something else, something in the way he carried himself. Pride, maybe. or the quiet strength of someone who'd survived things that would break lesser men. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Because someone helped me once," he said simply, "when I was 14 and half-starved after my village was burned. A rancher named Thomas Blackwater took me in, gave me his name when I had none left. I'm just paying forward what was given to me." The ring felt heavy in Eleanor's palm. "I should pay you back. Keep your grandmother's ring," Blackwater said, and she realized he'd understood more from looking at her than she'd spoken aloud. "You'll want something of home when the nights get cold." The Blackwater Ranch sprawled across a valley where the Gila River cut through red rock country like a silver knife. The house was adobe, thick-walled and cool, with wooden beams crossing the ceiling. Eleanor's room was small but clean, with a real bed and a window overlooking a corral where horses moved like liquid muscle in the evening light. "You can start tomorrow," Blackwater said, setting her bag on the bed. "Get some rest. You look like you've been running from the devil himself." "Close enough," Eleanor murmured. He paused in the doorway. "The man you're running from, is he likely to come looking?" Eleanor's blood went cold. "How did you—" "I can read tracks in dirt and stories in faces." His expression was grave. "If he comes here, he'll regret it." "That's another promise." That night, Eleanor ate her first full meal in a week. Beef stew thick with vegetables, cornbread dripping with butter, coffee so strong it made her head spin. Blackwater ate in silence across the rough pine table, but it wasn't an uncomfortable quiet. It was the silence of someone who understood that words weren't always necessary. "Why do they call you Blackwater?" she asked finally. "Because Thomas gave me his last name, and my first name means Darkwater. In my mother's tongue. Seemed fitting." He set down his spoon. "My birth name is gone now, buried with everyone who knew it. I'm sorry." "Don't be. The past is like a river. You can't step in the same water twice." He stood, carrying his plate to the basin. "But we carry pieces of it with us, like stones in our pockets. Sometimes they weigh us down. Sometimes they're what keep us from floating away entirely." Eleanor lay awake that night, listening to coyotes sing in the distance. For the first time in months, she felt something besides fear. Not quite hope. Hope felt too fragile, too presumptuous. But possibility, maybe. The sense that tomorrow might not be worse than today. The work was indeed hard. Eleanor rose before dawn to stoke the fire, make coffee, prepare breakfast for Blackwater and his 3 ranch hands. Miguel, a vaquero who could throw a rope with supernatural accuracy. Sam, a former Buffalo soldier with hands gentle enough to deliver calves. And Charlie, a kid barely 20, who played harmonica so sweet it made grown men cry. She learned to make bread that didn't taste like shoe leather, to mend shirts torn by barbed wire and cactus, to preserve vegetables in brine against the lean winter months. Her hands, once soft from a life of needlepoint and piano lessons, developed calluses and strength. Blackwater taught her to ride, putting her on a gentle mare named Sage. "Horses can sense fear," he said, walking alongside as she gripped the saddle horn. "But they can also sense confidence. Sit up straight. You're not asking permission, you're forming a partnership." His hands steadied her boot in the stirrup, and Eleanor felt electricity run up her leg from that simple touch. She told herself it was nerves, nothing more. "How did you learn all this?" she asked one evening as he showed her how to read the sky for weather signs. "The ranching, I mean, weren't you—" She stopped, uncertain how to phrase it. "Apache?" He said the word without shame. Born to it, yes. Raised until 14 to hunt and fight, read the land like a book written in wind and stone. Thomas taught me the rest. How to breed cattle, manage accounts, deal with white men's laws. His jaw tightened. Both educations have kept me alive. Do you regret it? Living this way instead of what? Starving on a reservation? Dying in a cavalry ambush? He shook his head. I chose survival. Some called it betrayal. But the dead don't get to judge the living. Eleanor understood that kind of choice. She'd betrayed her father's expectations, her town's rules, everything she'd been raised to be. And she'd do it again. 6 weeks passed. Eleanor filled out, her cheeks regaining color, her body growing strong from work and regular meals. She caught Blackwater watching her sometimes, not with the hungry look of men in town, but with something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or the careful attention someone might give a wounded bird learning to fly again. The nightmares still came. She'd wake gasping, remembering Jacob Thornwell's meaty hands, his whiskey breath, the way he'd said, "You'll learn to mind me after we're wed." One night, she woke screaming. Blackwater appeared in her doorway within seconds, shirtless, a rifle in his hands. "What is it?" "Nothing. I'm sorry. Just a dream." She pulled the blanket to her chin, trying not to stare at the landscape of his chest, all muscle and old scars, including one that looked like a bullet wound near his left shoulder. He set the rifle aside and lit the oil lamp on her dresser. Dreams are nothing. They're the past trying to tell us something. He pulled a chair to her bedside. Respectful distance, but close enough to talk. "You want to tell me about him?" So she did. The words spilled out like water from a broken dam. Her father's gambling debts. Jacob Thornwell's offer to pay them in exchange for her hand. The wedding day, when she'd seen the cold calculation in Jacob's eyes and understood she'd be property, not wife. "I ran during the ceremony," she said, surprised by her own voice. Steady now, not shaking. "Right after the preacher asked if anyone objected. I objected. To all of it." "Good," Blackwater said simply. "My father will never forgive me." "Then he doesn't deserve your forgiveness either." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Eleanor, you need to understand something. What you did took more courage than most people manage in a lifetime. You chose yourself. That's not selfish, that's survival." She looked at him in the lamplight, at the hard planes of his face and the unexpected gentleness in his eyes. "Do you ever get tired of surviving?" "Every day," he admitted. "But then the sun rises and the horses need feeding and there's coffee to make. And I think maybe today I'll do more than survive. Maybe today I'll actually live." Something shifted between them in that moment. A recognition, perhaps, of two people who'd learned the same hard lessons. The trouble came on a Tuesday morning in October. Eleanor was hanging laundry when she saw the dust cloud on the eastern road. 4 riders, moving fast. Her stomach dropped. "Blackwater," she called, running toward the barn. He emerged, already reaching for his gun belt, his expression going hard as granite. "Get in the house. Bar the door." "It might be him. I know." He checked his revolver with practiced efficiency. "Miguel, Sam, Charlie, riders coming in hot." Eleanor should have gone inside, should have hidden, like he told her, but she'd spent her whole life doing what men told her, and she was done. She grabbed a rifle from the barn wall, one Blackwater had taught her to shoot, and positioned herself by the water trough with a clear line of sight. The riders pulled up in a spray of dust. The man in front was exactly as she remembered. Jacob Thornwell, face red with rage and righteousness, belly straining against his vest. 2 ranch hands flanked him, and beside him rode her father, looking older and smaller than she remembered. "Eleanor," her father called, "come out here, girl. It's time to stop this foolishness." Blackwater stepped into view, and Eleanor saw Jacob's eyes widen slightly. It was one thing to chase a runaway woman, another entirely to face a man who looked like he'd been carved from the same stone as the mountains. "This is private property," Blackwater said, his voice carrying across the yard. "State your business or leave." "That's my fiancée," Jacob said, though his hand had moved closer to his pistol. "She ran out on our wedding. I've come to take her home." "I'm not your anything," Eleanor called out, stepping into view with the rifle. Her voice only shook a little. "And I'm not going anywhere." "Eleanor Rose Martin, you get over here right now," her father demanded. "You've shamed me enough." I said no. The rifle felt heavy but steady in her hands. "I'd rather die free than live as property." Jacob's face twisted. "You ungrateful little—" His hand went for his gun. Everything happened very fast. Blackwater moved like lightning, his revolver clearing leather before Jacob's had fully drawn. The shot cracked across the yard, and Jacob's hat flew off his head. The man froze, eyes wide, a thin line of blood appearing where the bullet had grazed his scalp. "The next one goes between your eyes," Blackwater said, his gun steady. Eleanor made her choice. Honor it or die arguing. Miguel and Sam had their weapons trained on the other riders. Charlie stood ready with a shotgun, his young face hard as nails. "She's my daughter." Eleanor's father tried one more time. "No," Eleanor said, surprised by how calm she felt. "I was your daughter, but you sold me like a horse to pay your debts. A real father would have worked himself to death before doing that." She lowered the rifle, knowing Blackwater would keep her safe. "Go home. Tell everyone I died if it makes it easier. I don't care anymore." Her father's face crumpled. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Jacob Thornwell was already turning his horse, blood dripping down his neck, his pride more wounded than his flesh. "You'll regret this, you savage bastard." Blackwater's second shot kicked up dust between the horse's front hooves, making it rear. "Ride away while you still can," he said quietly, "before I remember I'm a savage and act like one." They rode away in a cloud of dust and shame. Eleanor stood there, shaking now that it was over. The rifle slipped from her hands. Blackwater caught it, then caught her as her knees buckled. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're safe. You're safe." "I could have gotten you killed," she gasped against his chest. "You stood your ground. That's what matters." He held her, one hand on her back, letting her shake it out. "Eleanor, you understand what just happened. You faced down your demons and sent them running." She pulled back to look at him, and suddenly, everything she'd been pushing down for weeks came rushing up. "I can't keep pretending," she said, the words tumbling out. "I can't keep acting like this is just a job, like I don't feel." She stopped, terrified. "Feel what?" His dark eyes searched hers. "Like I'm alive for the first time in my life. Like every morning I wake up and you're the first thing I want to see. Like," she swallowed hard, "like I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know what to do about it because I'm supposed to be broken, supposed to be afraid of men, supposed to—" He kissed her. It was gentle at first, asking permission, giving her every chance to pull away. But Eleanor had spent her whole life pulling away from things. This time, she leaned in, her hands fisting in his shirt, pouring 6 weeks of longing and fear and desperate hope into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Blackwater pressed his forehead to hers. "I've been trying not to want you," he admitted. "Thought you needed space to heal, not another man complicating things." "I did need space," Eleanor said. "But I also need you. Both things can be true." Miguel's voice drifted across the yard. "About damn time. Sam owes me $5. They laughed, still holding each other, and Eleanor felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking, but blooming, like a flower pushing through concrete. That night, after dinner was cleared and the hands had gone to the bunkhouse, Blackwater took Eleanor's hand. "Walk with me?" They walked to the bluff overlooking the valley, where the sunset painted the sky in shades of fire and gold. The Gila River caught the light, turning to molten copper. "I need to tell you something," he said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "And I need you to really hear it." Eleanor's heart hammered. "All right. I'm not an easy man to love. I have nightmares too. See my family burning. Hear my mother screaming. Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm 14 again, and everyone I knew is dead." He stared at the horizon. "I've killed men, rustlers mostly, but also soldiers who came for me when they decided my adoption papers didn't matter. The world sees me as a half-breed playing at being white, and they're not entirely wrong." "I don't care what the world sees," Eleanor said fiercely. "You should, because if you stay with me, you'll face it too. The stares, the whispers, towns where we're not welcome. People who will call our children half-breeds and worse. If," she turned to face him fully, "you think I'd leave because things might be hard? I left everything I knew with $3 and a dream. You think I'm afraid of narrow-minded people?" A smile tugged at his lips. "You're something else, Eleanor Martin." "Eleanor Blackwater has a better ring to it," she said, then blushed furiously at her own boldness. His eyes went wide. "Is that a proposal? Well, you weren't getting around to it, and I'm tired of waiting for men to make decisions about my life." She squared her shoulders. "So yes, I'm asking you to marry me, Blackwater. And before you list all the reasons why it's complicated or difficult, or—" He kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious and breakable. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "Yes," he said simply. "Yes, I'll marry you. Tomorrow, if you want. Or we can wait until—" "Tomorrow," Eleanor said. "I'm done waiting." They were married by a circuit preacher who happened to be passing through Redemption. Miguel, Sam, and Charlie stood as witnesses. Eleanor wore a simple blue dress she'd mended herself. Blackwater wore his best clothes and looked uncomfortable as a horse in a henhouse. The ceremony was brief. Eleanor kept waiting for someone to object, for her father to burst through the door, for something to go wrong. But nothing did. When the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Blackwater cupped her face and kissed her with such tenderness she almost cried. "I love you," he whispered against her lips, the first time he'd said it out loud. "I know," she whispered back. "I love you too." The wedding feast was simple: roasted venison, cornbread, dried apple pie. Charlie played his harmonica, while Miguel sang in Spanish, his voice sweet and pure. Sam told stories that made everyone laugh until their sides ached. That night, in the room that had been Eleanor's but was now theirs, Blackwater undressed her slowly, reverently, his hands shaking slightly. "We can wait," he said when he noticed her trembling. "There's no rush." "I'm not afraid," Eleanor said, and realized it was true. "Not of you. Not anymore. But go slow." She touched his face. Some things still hurt. I'll die before I hurt you, he promised, and proved it with every kiss, every careful touch. He made love to her like she was a prayer, something sacred, and when she gasped his name, he held her close and whispered, "Together, we'll face everything together." Later, curled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady as a drum, Eleanor thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago. That girl would never have believed this was possible. This peace, this joy, this absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. "What are you thinking?" Blackwater asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I'm glad I ran," she said. "Glad I was hungry enough to try trading my grandmother's ring. Glad I was desperate enough to take a chance on a stranger. I'm the lucky one," he said. "You could have walked into any trading post, and instead, you walked into mine." "Fate," Eleanor said. "Grace," he corrected. "We were both given grace." 5 years passed. The Blackwater Ranch grew. They added more land, more cattle. Eleanor learned to keep books and negotiate with buyers. She rode the range alongside the men, her rifle always at hand, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. They had a daughter first, Rosa, named for Blackwater's mother. Then twin boys, Thomas and Miguel. The children grew up wild and free, learning both English and Apache, equally comfortable in the rancho and the wild. Eleanor's father never wrote. Jacob Thornwell married someone else. Another desperate girl sold to pay debts. Sometimes Eleanor thought about writing to her, offering sanctuary. But some things people had to figure out themselves. One evening, Eleanor stood on the bluff where Blackwater had proposed. She still smiled at the memory. She'd proposed to him, not the other way around. Rosa sat beside her, nearly 5 now, serious and clever. "Mama, tell me again how you and Papa met," Rosa said. Eleanor smiled. "Well, I was in trouble, and your Papa saved me." "Like a fairy tale?" "Better than a fairy tale, because in this story, I saved myself first. Your Papa just helped me stay saved." Blackwater appeared behind them, sliding his arms around Eleanor's waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Telling stories?" "The true ones," Eleanor said, leaning back against him. "The best kind." Rosa ran off to chase a jackrabbit, her laughter echoing across the valley. "Do you ever regret it?" Blackwater asked quietly. "Giving up your old life?" Eleanor turned in his arms to look at him. His hair was starting to show gray at the temples. Lines crinkled around his eyes from squinting at the sun. He was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "Never," she said firmly. "You know what I remember most about that day? When you told me gold wasn't what we needed. You were right. What I needed was someone to see me as a person, not property. What I needed was—" She paused, emotion thick in her throat. "Was what?" he prompted gently. Eleanor thought back to the moment that had changed everything. She remembered standing in her father's parlor, surrounded by women congratulating her on her engagement, their voices like birds in a cage. Her sister Margaret had pulled her aside, eyes full of concern. "You don't have to do this, Ellie," Margaret had whispered. "I do, for Papa, for the family." Margaret's face had crumpled. "What about for yourself?" "Ellie, I watch you with Jacob, and it's like you're dying inside. Like all the light is draining out of you. Light doesn't pay debts." "Maybe not, but what's the point of being alive if you're not really living?" Those words had haunted Eleanor through the ceremony, through the moment she'd gathered her skirts and run, and now, standing in her husband's arms with the sunset painting the world gold, she finally understood. "What I needed," Eleanor continued, her voice steady and sure, was someone who made me feel alive. Really, truly alive. Not just surviving, but living. She thought about saying those words differently, about how Margaret might have said it with desperate tears, how it might sound as a cry to the uncaring universe. And suddenly, she could hear it. The echo of what she'd felt in that parlor, what she'd carried across 300 miles of desperate running. Eleanor pulled back to look Blackwater in the eyes. "I want him. Do you hear me?" she said, letting herself voice the raw truth of that desperate girl she'd been. "Laugh if you wish, but he's the only one who made me feel alive." Blackwater's eyes went soft. Who would laugh at the truth? My father did. My sister did too, but gently. They said I was being foolish, that love was a luxury, that practical matters were all that mattered. She touched his face, her palm against his weathered cheek. But I was right to run, right to trust you, right to choose feeling alive over being safe. "Sometimes they're the same thing," Blackwater said. "Being alive, being safe with someone who loves you." "Sometimes," Eleanor agreed, "when you're very, very lucky." They stood there as the sun set, as Rosa's laughter echoed up from the valley, as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Eleanor thought about the girl who traded a gold ring for hope, about the man who'd offered grace instead of judgment, about the life they'd built from nothing but determination and love. She'd chosen right. She'd chosen to live, and every day since had proven it. The peace lasted 3 more years before the past came calling again. Eleanor was in the garden, teaching Rosa and the twins how to identify edible plants, when she heard horses approaching fast. Too fast. Her hand instinctively went to the small revolver she now wore always at her hip, a gift from Blackwater on their first anniversary. But these weren't strangers. It was Charlie, riding hard from town, his face pale. "Mrs. Blackwater," he called, pulling his horse up short. "There's trouble, bad trouble." Eleanor's blood ran cold. "Where's my husband?" "In town, that's the problem." Charlie swung down from his horse, breathing hard. "There's a federal marshal there. Says he's got papers claiming Mr. Blackwater murdered a cavalry soldier 8 years ago. Says he's taking him to trial in Tucson." The world tilted. Eleanor grabbed Charlie's arm to steady herself. "That's impossible. Blackwater has never." "He has," came Miguel's voice. The vaquero appeared from the barn, his face grim. "It was before you came, Señora, before any of us." A soldier came to the ranch, drunk, looking for Indians to shoot. Tried to burn the barn. Mr. Blackwater stopped him, permanently. "Self-defense," Eleanor said immediately. "To us, yes. To the army?" Miguel shook his head. "A dead white soldier and a half-breed rancher. They don't care about the truth." Eleanor's mind raced. 8 years she'd had with this man. 8 years of love and laughter and building a life. She'd be damned if she let some bureaucrat in a badge destroy it. "Charlie, saddle my horse. Miguel, get Sam. We're going to town." "Señora, Mr. Blackwater said to keep you here, keep you safe." "My husband is in danger," Eleanor said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Do you really think I'm going to sit here and do nothing?" Miguel smiled, despite the gravity of the situation. "No, Señora, I suppose you're not." The town of Redemption looked different through eyes sharpened by fear. Eleanor rode in flanked by Miguel and Sam, with Charlie bringing up the rear. People stared as they passed. The rancher's wife, armed and determined, with a crew of loyal hands. The marshal had Blackwater in the sheriff's office. Through the window, Eleanor could see her husband sitting calmly, his hands shackled, his face unreadable. The sight of those iron cuffs around his wrists made her vision go red. She dismounted and walked straight through the door. The marshal, a thin man with small eyes and a badge that caught the light, looked up in surprise. "Ma'am, this is official business." "This is my husband," Eleanor said, "and I'd like to see these papers you're waving around." The marshal's surprise shifted to condescension. "This doesn't concern you, little lady." "Marshal Gifford," Blackwater said quietly, "I'd advise you not to underestimate my wife. She's meaner than a rattlesnake when provoked, and considerably smarter." Despite everything, Eleanor felt a surge of love for this man who respected her even in chains. Marshal Gifford handed over the papers with obvious reluctance. Eleanor read them carefully, her legal education from before her flight serving her well. Her father might have tried to sell her, but he'd insisted she learn to read contracts first. "This warrant is 8 years old," she said, "and it identifies the accused as John Blackwater, half-breed rancher. But my husband's legal name is Jonathan Thomas Blackwater. His adoption papers are on file in the territorial courthouse. Say man. Prove it. The warrant describes a man with a scar across his left cheek. My husband has no such scar." She leaned forward. "You've got the wrong man, Marshal, and if you take him to trial on false charges, I'll make sure every newspaper from here to Washington knows about it." It was a bluff. She had no such connections. But the marshal didn't know that. Blackwater's eyes met hers, and she saw pride there. "And love. Always love. The cavalry officer who filed this report is dead," the marshal said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Killed in an Apache raid 2 years back." "Convenient," Sam said from the doorway. "Real convenient, charging a man when the only witness is dead and can't verify the identity." The sheriff, a local man who'd known Blackwater for years, cleared his throat. "Marshal, I've known Jonathan Blackwater since he came to this territory. He's a respected rancher, a property owner, a married man with children, and I've never seen him with a scar on his left cheek." "Could have healed." "Scars don't heal," Eleanor said coldly. "They fade, but they don't disappear. You've made a mistake, Marshal. The honorable thing to do is admit it." The standoff lasted another hour. Eleanor refused to leave, refused to back down, refused to show even a flicker of the terror eating at her insides. Miguel stood silent and solid by the door. Sam's hand never left his gun belt. Charlie watched the street for any sign of trouble. Finally, Marshal Gifford unlocked the shackles. "I'll be sending a telegraph to Tucson," he said, trying to save face. "Verifying the adoption records and such." "You do that," Eleanor said sweetly. "And while you're at it, perhaps mention that attempting to arrest the wrong man could be considered a grave abuse of federal authority." Outside in the hot Arizona sun, Blackwater pulled Eleanor into his arms. She could feel him shaking, not from fear, but from relief. "You shouldn't have come," he murmured into her hair. "Yes, I should have." She pulled back to look at him. "You've saved me more times than I can count. Did you think I wouldn't return the favor? I hoped you'd stay safe with the children. The children are with Sarah at the neighboring ranch, and they're fine." Eleanor touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "We're partners, remember? For better or worse. That means I stand with you when trouble comes." Miguel coughed politely. "Perhaps we should get back to the ranch before the marshal changes his mind. See?" They rode home in silence, but it was a comfortable silence now. The silence of people who'd faced danger together and won. That night, after the children were asleep, Eleanor and Blackwater sat on their porch watching the stars. "I killed that soldier," Blackwater said quietly. Everything the warrant claimed was true, except the name and the scar. They got those details wrong, but the rest? Did he deserve it? Eleanor asked. He was going to burn my barn with the horses inside. Then he aimed his rifle at me and called me a savage who needed putting down. Blackwater's voice was flat. So yes, I think he deserved it. Then I'm glad you killed him, Eleanor said simply. And I'd do it again if I had to protect you. He looked at her in the starlight. When did you become so fierce? When I met a man who taught me that strength wasn't something to be ashamed of. That standing up for yourself and for the people you love was the most important thing in the world. She took his hand. You gave me that gift. I'm just returning it. Life settled back into its rhythm, but Eleanor found herself restless in a way she hadn't been before. She'd tasted action, had felt the thrill of fighting for something that mattered, and going back to just cooking and mending felt insufficient. I want to do more, she told Blackwater one morning as they watched the sunrise. More? With the ranch, with our life. She struggled to find the words. I love being a wife and mother, but there's a part of me that wants something else too, something that's mine. Instead of looking offended, Blackwater smiled. I've been waiting for you to say that. You have? Eleanor, you're one of the smartest people I know. Did you think I wanted you to spend your whole life just making my dinner? He pulled out a folder from his desk. I've been looking into starting a horse breeding program. We've got good stock, and there's a market for trained horses. But I don't have time to manage it properly. Eleanor's heart began to race. You want me to run it? I want you to own it. Half the horses on this ranch were bought with your money, the money you've saved from your wages, the profit from the chickens and eggs you started selling. It's only fair you get to decide what to do with them. It was more than fair. It was extraordinary. Eleanor knew plenty of ranchers' wives who were essentially prisoners in their own homes. Their opinions valued about as much as the furniture. I'd need to learn more about breeding, she said, already planning, and training techniques. Maybe I could write to some of the big ranches in California. Or you can start by working with Miguel. He knows more about horses than anyone I've ever met. Blackwater kissed her forehead. Build it however you want. I trust you. Those words, I trust you, meant more than any poetry. Within a year, Blackwater Ranch was known for two things: quality cattle and exceptional horses. Eleanor developed a reputation for being able to gentle even the wildest Mustang, and for breeding horses with both stamina and intelligence. She hired 2 young women from town to help with the house, paying them fair wages and teaching them skills. One of them, a girl named Jenny who'd been working in the saloon, proved to have a natural gift with animals. I never thought I could do anything else, Jenny said one day, watching a foal take its first wobbly steps. Everyone said I was only good for one thing. Everyone was wrong, Eleanor said firmly. You're good at lots of things. You just needed the chance to find them. She saw her younger self in Jenny, the girl who'd been told her value was in her appearance and obedience, not her mind or strength. Giving Jenny a different path felt like healing that old wound. Thank you for listening. Please be patient and join us. We truly get the point of the story. Here is the step-by-step order. A little action and a soft landing. This beautiful epic story you're about to hear. Rosa turned 10, and the twins were 7. They were wild, beautiful children who could ride before they could write, who spoke English and Apache with equal fluency, who knew the land like it was written in their bones. But Eleanor watched them carefully, especially Rosa. The world was not kind to children who didn't fit neatly into one category or another. Mixed-blood children faced prejudice from all sides. "Mama," Rosa asked one evening, "why do the kids in town call me half-breed?" Eleanor's heart clenched. She looked at Blackwater, who nodded slightly. "Your story to tell." "Because people are afraid of what they don't understand," Eleanor said, pulling Rosa onto her lap, even though the girl was getting too big for it. "Your papa is Apache. I'm white. That makes you both, and some people's minds are too small to hold something that big and beautiful." "But what am I really?" Rosa's voice was small, uncertain. "You're Rosa Blackwater," Eleanor said fiercely. "You're brilliant and brave and kind. You're a writer and a reader. You're your father's daughter and my daughter. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. What if people keep being mean? Then you hold your head high and remember that their meanness is about them, not you, and you have a whole ranch full of people who love you exactly as you are." Rosa seemed to accept this, but Eleanor saw the worry in her daughter's eyes. She knew that love and acceptance at home wouldn't shield Rosa from the wider world's cruelty. That night, she voiced her fears to Blackwater. "I want to protect them from everything, but I can't." "No," he agreed. "We can't. But we can give them what Thomas gave me: a name, a place to belong, and the tools to fight for themselves." He pulled her close, "and we can teach them that they're not alone. That we'll stand with them, always." It was both more and less than Eleanor wanted, but it was the truth. The drought came in the summer of their 10th year together. The Gila River shrank to a trickle. The grass turned brown and brittle. Cattle grew thin, their ribs showing through their hides. Other ranchers began talking about selling their herds before they starved. Eleanor watched their savings dwindle as they bought feed from other territories. She saw the worry lines deepen around Blackwater's eyes. "We can sell some of the horses," she offered, though the words hurt. "Not yet," he said. "If we can hold on through this season, the rains will come. They always do." But what if they didn't? Eleanor lay awake at night, calculating and recalculating. They had enough money to last 3 more months, maybe 4 if they were careful. After that, she thought about the girl she'd been, willing to trade her grandmother's ring for a meal. Now she had children to feed, workers depending on her, a whole life that could crumble if she made the wrong choice. The answer came from an unexpected source. A man named William Hartford rode up to the ranch in a fancy carriage, his clothes marking him as wealthy even before he opened his mouth. He wanted to buy horses, not just any horses, but Eleanor's best breeding stock. "I'll give you $5,000, he said, "for the lot." It was more money than Eleanor had seen in years. Enough to save the ranch, to weather the drought, to build something even bigger. But these horses were her creation, her purpose beyond wife and mother. Selling them felt like selling pieces of herself. "I need to think about it," she said. Hartford's smile was patronizing. "Of course. Though I should mention I'm leaving for California in 3 days. If you want to sell, it needs to be before then." After he left, Eleanor sat in the barn with her favorite mare, a gray she'd named Silver for the color of her coat. The horse nuzzled her shoulder, soft and trusting. "I don't know what to do," Eleanor whispered. Blackwater found her there an hour later. He sat beside her in the straw, saying nothing, just being present. "The ranch needs that money," Eleanor finally said. "The ranch will survive without it. We've been through hard times before. Not like this. And We didn't have children to think about before. She looked at him. Tell me what to do. I can't. This is your choice. He took her hand. But I can tell you this. I didn't marry you because I needed a housekeeper or a business partner. I married you because you're Eleanor. Stubborn, brave, fierce Eleanor, who chose herself when the whole world told her not to. Whatever you decide, that's the person making the choice. Eleanor closed her eyes. She thought about the girl trading a ring for bread, the woman standing up to a marshal, the mother teaching her daughter to be proud of who she was. She thought about what mattered most. I'm going to sell them, she said, not because I have to, but because I choose to. Because the ranch is all of ours, yours, mine, the children's, the workers. And we don't sacrifice family for pride. Blackwater kissed her temple. Whatever you choose is right. The rains came 2 weeks after Hartford took the horses. They came in torrents, filling the river, turning the brown grass green, saving what remained of the herds. Eleanor stood in the downpour, face turned to the sky, letting the water wash over her. She'd made the right choice. She knew it in her bones. But she also knew she'd build again. The horses were gone, but her knowledge remained. Her skills remained. She was Eleanor Blackwater, and she didn't stay down for long. That night, dripping wet and laughing, she burst into the house where Blackwater was trying to coral 3 excited children who'd been playing in the rain. We're going to be fine, she said. I know. No, I mean really fine. Better than fine. She grabbed his hands. I'm going to start over, build something even better. And this time, I'm going to teach Rosa and the boys everything I know. So they'll always have skills, always have options, always have a way to stand on their own. Blackwater smiled, that rare, full smile that made her heart skip. Of course you will. Did you think a little drought would stop Eleanor Blackwater? Not a chance, she said, and kissed him while their children giggled and the rain drummed on the roof. She'd chosen survival again. But more than that, she'd chosen life. Messy, complicated, beautiful life. And she'd keep choosing it every single day for as long as she breathed. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Eleanor and Blackwater's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.